In a defense expo, a tank can look flawless. Perfect angles, clean armor, digital screens glowing under showroom lights. But tanks are not built for exhibitions. They are built for heat, mud, logistics failures, and long nights where nothing works the way it did during trials. And in Southeast Asia, where humidity rarely drops below 70%, where roads dissolve into mud for half the year, and where maintenance units matter as much as frontline crews, something quiet has been happening. Chinese tanks are not being rejected. They're not being condemned. No press conferences, no dramatic cancellations. They are simply being trusted less. On paper, the numbers still look convincing. Modern fire control systems, reactive armor, competitive prices, a tank that appears newer, cheaper, and more advanced than many Western alternatives. Yet across Southeast Asia, armies are doing something revealing. They are upgrading older platforms instead of buying more new ones. They are diversifying suppliers. They are hedging, not loudly, not politically, but operationally. According to data compiled by SIPRI in 2023, regional arms procurement patterns show a clear preference for diversification over dependence, especially in armored forces. No one says, "We don't trust this tank." They simply act as if trust needs a backup plan. This is not a story about ideology. It is not about choosing sides in a great power rivalry. It is about a far more uncomfortable question, one militaries rarely ask in public, but always ask in private. When everything goes wrong, when supply chains fracture, when electronics fail under heat and pressure, which tank still shows up to fight? Because in modern warfare, confidence is not built by specifications, it is built by survival. Welcome to Minh Quân Story International. Today, we're not asking why Chinese tanks look impressive. We're asking why, quietly and without drama, Southeast Asia is beginning to look elsewhere. For years, Chinese tanks made perfect sense in Southeast Asia. After the Cold War, many regional armies found themselves in an uncomfortable position. Their armored fleets were aging, budgets were limited, and the strategic environment demanded modernization, quickly but affordably. Western main battle tanks were powerful but expensive. Russian platforms were familiar but increasingly difficult to sustain. Local production was limited. China stepped into that gap with a clear offer. Modern-looking tanks delivered fast at prices far below Western equivalents, financing terms that were flexible, few political conditions, and an export strategy designed specifically for developing and middle-income militaries. According to a Reuters analysis published in 2022, China has deliberately positioned its defense exports around cost efficiency and rapid delivery, targeting regions where modernization pressure is high but budgets are tight. For Southeast Asian militaries, this was not ideology, it was arithmetic. A tank like the VT series promised digital fire control systems, modern armor packages, and respectable firepower without consuming an entire defense budget. On paper, it offered a way to leapfrog decades of stagnation in one procurement cycle. And in peacetime, that logic held. Most Southeast Asian armies do not plan for massive armored offensives. Tanks serve defensive roles, deterrence roles, and, just as importantly, symbolic ones. They reassure domestic audiences, they signal capability to neighbors, they demonstrate modernization. SIPRI's 2023 military expenditure report shows that while regional defense spending has grown steadily, it remains focused on broad capability coverage rather than elite, high-end platforms. In that environment, Chinese armor looked like a rational compromise. Good enough firepower, modern aesthetics, manageable cost. But military trust is not built in peacetime. It is built slowly through training cycles, maintenance logs, spare parts requests, and after-action reports that never make headlines. And this is where the story begins to change. Because as these tanks moved from procurement documents to daily service, from parades to exercises, regional armies began asking a different question. Not, is this tank modern, but is this tank dependable, adaptable, and survivable in the kind of war we are actually preparing for? That question marks the moment when confidence stops being theoretical and becomes operational. When militaries began asking that question, specifications stopped being persuasive. Because modern warfare does not reward peak performance on a good day, it punishes inconsistency on a bad one. The first doubts did not emerge from battlefield defeats. They emerged from something far less dramatic: maintenance. In theory, modern tanks are defined by sensors, software, and protection systems. In reality, they are defined by operational availability, how often they can move, shoot, and communicate when commanders need them to. Rand Corporation's 2021 study on defense sustainment makes an uncomfortable point. Between 60 and 70% of a major weapon system's lifetime cost is not the purchase price, but maintenance, logistics, and sustainment. In other words, the real test of a tank begins after the contract is signed. Southeast Asia is one of the harshest environments for armored vehicles. High humidity accelerates corrosion. Heat stresses engines and electronics. Monsoon seasons turn roads into mud and dust into abrasive paste. Jane's Defense Weekly noted in its 2020 analysis of tropical operations that platforms designed without extensive adaptation for these conditions tend to experience higher wear rates and shorter maintenance cycles. This is where paper strength meets environmental reality. For regional armies, the concern was not that Chinese tanks failed catastrophically. It was that they required more attention, more specialized parts, and more external support than initially expected. And in military planning, dependency is a liability. Defense News reported in 2022 that over-reliance on foreign spare parts can sharply reduce readiness during crises, especially when supply chains are disrupted or diplomatic conditions shift. A tank that cannot be repaired locally is not a combat asset, it is a storage liability. Quietly, officers began to notice something important. A slightly older tank that can be repaired with existing tools, supported by familiar logistics, and understood deeply by maintenance crews, is often more valuable than a newer one that depends on external lifelines. This realization leads to the second layer of doubt. Modern armies no longer fight as collections of platforms, they fight as networks. According to a 2022 CSIS report on network-centric warfare, effectiveness increasingly depends on how well systems share data between tanks, drones, artillery, air defense, and command centers. A tank that cannot integrate smoothly into this network is not fully modern, no matter how advanced it appears in isolation. Southeast Asian militaries operate some of the most mixed-origin arsenals in the world. Western radios, Russian artillery, Israeli sensors, domestic command systems. The Diplomat's defense modernization coverage between 2021 and 2023 repeatedly highlighted this reality. Regional forces prioritize interoperability because replacing entire ecosystems is financially impossible. Here, Chinese tanks encountered a subtle but persistent problem: different communication standards, different data protocols, different design philosophies. Jane's Defense Weekly warned in 2021 that non-standardized systems can become tactical islands within a broader force structure, present, powerful, but disconnected. A tank that sees well but cannot share what it sees is only half useful in modern combat. And then came the wars everyone was watching. The conflict in Ukraine did not make tanks obsolete, but it stripped away illusions. BBC analysis from 2022 through 2024 showed that tanks survive not through armor alone, but through coordination: drones spotting threats, infantry protecting flanks, electronic warfare suppressing enemy sensors. Defense News observed in 2023 that systems proven in high-intensity combat gain credibility not because they're perfect, but because their weaknesses are known, documented, and adapted to. This matters deeply for perception. Chinese main battle tanks have limited publicly available combat records in sustained peer-level conflicts. Reuters, summarizing open-source defense analysis in 2023, noted that while Chinese platforms are technologically advancing, their real-world performance under modern battlefield stress remains largely untested in transparent ways. For Southeast Asian planners, this creates uncertainty, not suspicion, uncertainty. And in military decision-making, uncertainty is often more damaging than known flaws. So, procurement behavior began to change, quietly. SIPRI's 2024 arms transfer data shows a clear regional trend toward diversification rather than expansion of single-source armored fleets. Instead of buying more tanks from one supplier, countries spread risk across multiple partners. The Diplomat reported between 2022 and 2024 that several Southeast Asian states chose to upgrade legacy platforms, improving optics, communications, and protection, rather than replace them wholesale with newer imports. At the same time, Nikkei Asia's reporting in 2023 highlighted a broader doctrinal shift, increased investment in drones, surveillance, artillery, and mobility, rather than heavy armor dominance. None of this is loud, but together it tells a coherent story. Southeast Asia is not losing faith in tanks, it is losing faith in the idea that affordability and modern appearance are enough. Because in modern war, relevance is not declared, it is tested, under pressure, over time, when nothing goes according to plan.
This brings us to the uncomfortable part of the story. Because what Southeast Asia is doing is not a rejection of China and not an endorsement of the West, and certainly not a political statement dressed up as procurement. It is something far more revealing. It is a recalibration of trust. According to a 2022 analysis by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, trust in military suppliers is shaped less by diplomacy than by wartime assumptions. How confident an army is that support, spare parts, and upgrades will still arrive when conditions deteriorate. And this is where affordability quietly collides with risk. A cheaper platform is attractive in peacetime budgets, but in wartime planning, the question changes. Not how much did it cost, but what happens if resupply is delayed? What happens if upgrades are needed mid-conflict? What happens if doctrine evolves faster than the platform? RAND's lifecycle assessments from 2021 make this clear. Systems that appear cost-effective at acquisition can become strategically expensive if sustainment and adaptability lag behind operational demands. Southeast Asian militaries understand this instinctively. They operate in constrained environments. They plan for uncertainty. They do not assume uninterrupted logistics or political alignment. So, when confidence weakens, they do not announce it. They hedge. They buy fewer follow-on units. They upgrade older tanks instead of replacing them. They invest in systems that reduce dependence, drones, sensors, precision fires. This is not distrust, it is insurance. And here's the twist. Chinese tanks are not obsolete, they are not irrelevant, and they are not uniquely flawed in a world where every tank is vulnerable. But the era when price and specifications alone could secure long-term confidence is ending. Defense News noted in its 2024 outlook on future warfare that militaries are shifting away from platform-centric thinking towards system-centric resilience, how well forces adapt, integrate, and recover under pressure. In that world, the most important question is no longer how modern is this tank, it is how resilient is the ecosystem behind it. SIPRI's 2023 Arms Transfer Report emphasizes that long-term support, upgrades, and operational transparency increasingly shape procurement decisions, especially for states that expect prolonged, uncertain conflicts. Southeast Asia is not loudly walking away from Chinese armor. It is quietly asking for more than what it was promised. More proof, more integration, more resilience. Because when war arrives, no one fights on a balance sheet. They fight with what still works, after the first week, after the first disruption, after the assumptions collapse. And that is the real story. Not why Southeast Asia is losing faith in Chinese tanks, but why modern militaries are losing faith in anything that looks convincing, yet has not earned trust under stress. If this kind of analysis helps you see defense news differently, not as headlines, but as behavior and incentives, consider subscribing to Minh Quân Story International. We don't ask who looks strongest on paper, we ask who survives reality. Because in modern warfare, silence is rarely ignorance. Sometimes, it is the clearest signal of all. And one final thought before we close. Defense trends rarely announce themselves with slogans, they reveal themselves through habits. What Southeast Asia is showing the world is not indecision, but maturity. An understanding that in modern war there are no perfect platforms, only systems that fail more slowly and forces that adapt more quickly. Tanks will remain part of the battlefield, but faith in them is no longer unconditional.
It must be earned through reliability, through integration, through proof under pressure. That quiet shift may not make headlines, but for militaries planning for the worst day of their history, it matters far more than any arms expo ever will. This has been Minh Story International, news told differently. If you value analysis that looks past slogans and specifications, you know what to do. Until next time, stay curious and never confuse appearances with capability.